another visitor, Derek Graham.
Oh, the hard, Derek.
Oh, good morning,
How was the farm?
Not too bad at all. Now it's a cool morning, but...
Oh, it's the road slippy.
It is. It's slippy in places now, surely. Did you get the tubs done?
Oh, my gubs, I did, surely. As a matter of fact, I finished one this morning. I gave it a touch of teak oil, but it's fair enough now.
Oh, that's lovely. What kind of timber is in there now, then?
That's Burma teak.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's grand.
It's brass brown, of course.
Oh, that's lovely.
So you have nothing to put on it except a touch of teak oil when it never gets dull.
Was there two more?
Yeah. I have 14 by 12, two 14 by 12s. What are you putting in them?
Shrubs.
I thought it was ordinary flowers, but they're fair enough.
Oh, that's grand.
They're bored for drainage now and ready for planting.
Ready for use?
Yeah.
Ready for use. That's lovely. That's
You
grand.
can take them out to the car now and I'll put this inside.
Yeah, that's grand. Do you do any more work for inside decorations such as...
I have no...
What would that be there now?
That's an umbrella stand.
Oh,
it's,
yes.
Made of Burma teak and bound with high polished brass.
Oh, lovely.
2 foot high by 10 inches diameter on the top.
Oh, lovely indeed.
So,
that's grand. Yeah. What do I owe you for these, Ned?
Sure, you can see me at the weekend. I'll be talking to you tomorrow or the next day.
Well, that's all right. I'll bring out the missus to see those.
I'll bring her out to look at this.
Things and
maybe I'll tell her this as well.
Well, hopefully.
Right.
Thanks very much indeed now. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
The top half of the churn, the crib, is completed and the collar hoop in place. This hoop will bridge the two halves of the churn when it is assembled.
In 1846 I decided anyway to have a go at it on my own. I was 26 years of age then. It was a bit of an adventure, you know. So material was very scarce. The times money was scarce enough too. During the cask time in Guinness's, I used to get a lot of material there. We used to get wonderful oak out of it. Some of it Russian oak, and it was really first class. They were very good to the ordinary small man in the country. They always kept his allowance of timber that to be cast off. Even when some bigger people would be for buying it all, they would always share it out evenly. To that extent, even though I never took a bottle of stout in my life, I was always very grateful to them.
Now that the top of the body of the churn has been trimmed to a knife edge, the last tress hoop can finally come off. Everything is ready for the crib to be fitted, but first chalk is rubbed on so that the hoop iron will not slip on the wood. The collar hoop, which forms the join, has been wasted for a perfect fit. A tricky job. A couple of small nails driven through the collar hoop will anchor the join. A final topping off. Then he'll make the lid.
Well, I would have hardly get into coopering at the time, only I started very early and I got apprenticed early because at that time it was a very closed shop. Not so much in the country business as in the distilleries or the breweries. As a matter of fact, you might as well try to get into having us get into Guinness's. It was very difficult because it was closed, protected trade. And it still is. It's handed down more or less from father to son or from father to grandson or what have you. There was another job in the early 50s and in the 60s I made freshwater kegs for the Commissioners of Irish Lights, 10 gallon and 5 gallon, and I made various wooden utensils that used to be used in the lightships and the lighthouses. When the light ship would go around to service these stations, it used to bring this fresh water in these kegs for the supply into the places. It used to bring oak washing tubs, deck buckets. I think they were for scrubbing, and there was a rope handling them. They were made from wood too. It's wooden staves, and galvanised. They were all done with galvanised because the seawater would eat away everything else. I used to label them for every lighthouse round the coast. Mutton Island, or whatever you call it, or Loop Head. Different. There wasn't one of them, but I knew off by heart at one time.
It was a tradition long ago that each cooperage made its own style of handle, or pulley up. So when a cooper saw a handle on a churn lid, he could tell immediately where it was made. This little cut in the lid will be matched up with another notch on the rim of the churn, so that the lid will always be put on in the same position, which will make sure that it fits perfectly. The dash is the plunger which separates the curds from the whey, turning the milk into butter.
Generally, the dash was made by a wood turner. He had a wood turning lathe, and he specialised in making butter dishes and dashes. And they were made largely out of sycamore, as white as a hound's tooth, well finished, and they were in the one piece. And they were turned, and there were all holes right round, and a hole in the centre for the staff, one up and down. Where I served my time, they were what they call a rodded dash. The raw material came from offcuts from the makings of cart fellows. Always Irish ash.
Today, Ned has to make his own. The shaft is of ash, which will be split to accommodate a wooden wedge to fix it firmly to the dash. This churn and dash are of the North Mayo type, which is where Ned will sell it. And so, casks and wash tubs, noggins and piggins, umbrella stands and plant tubs, and a one-cow dash churn.
That was the great satisfaction when you did the churn. You really achieved something. You made a thing from start to finish. You had to use the raw material, you converted it from a plank or even a cask into something else. And you felt that you created something. You left something that was going to be there for years and years and years, you know, and there was a great satisfaction, and there still is. Anything you make, it's a very satisfying job. And there's one thing about it, if you're making something, you're always trying to improve the next one. And this is something that gets into you. You'd even sacrifice money to have the thing 100% right. Coopering will disappear, there's no doubt about it. It's like the blacksmithing too. There doesn't seem to be anyone following. I think it's beginning to dawn on people now that our future lies in things that we create, and that we'll live or die, in my humble opinion, by the things we make.
He's a portion of the do.
The man's there?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Do you make any riddles, Mr. Surlis?
No, I didn't make any in a good while.
In years?
Yeah, in years.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Well, there was an old man down the way here that used to make them, you know.
Yes, I remember
Used
seeing
to
him.
specialise in that
Yes.
sort of thing, you know. But this old Gorman, like, I used to hear a way back that he used to cut the log of ash to the length, you know.
Yes.
And clipped it with a clipper, you know.
Yes.
And however he used to do it, and he used to cut them out there, not to saw them at all, you know.
No saw now. No saw.
That's the way he used to do it, you know.
All from October came, he was getting them ready for November for the oats, for riddling the oats.
Yes.
Well, I'm too old now for beetling the timber for to take the stripes off for making the riddle.
Oh, I see.
You see, you lifted it up with a chisel, and you pulled the strip the whole length.
I see.
And there was no planing, no more, only put the bottom in the riddle.
When Peter the Great began to build ships, there were few sawmills in Russia. But the shipwrights, men from the forests, had great skill with the axe. Using an adze for blocking, John Surles will say, before there was ever a saw or a mill, that's how it was done. 66 years ago, he says, the circular saw, working on water power, came to boil.
A lovely day. Huh?
The three-legged stool will sit on high ground or low ground, and at the milking could be mighty helpful if the cow turned frisky. That was before the milking machine. The machine needs no stool. But this four-legged stool, a local Sligo style for the hearth or for the milking, seems to be a great favourite, as it takes shape under his hands. The holes for the legs are drilled with an auger. For strength and security, they're drilled at an angle. The seat is trimmed with a hand axe or hatchet, and now you can see with what skill Peter the Great's men in their time, and many other men since time began, trimmed wood. From Battlebridge on the Upper Shannon, close to Leitrim village, and the last remnants of the fortress of O'Rourke of Breffni, the grandfather of John Surles moved, and married in Cloonloo, a mile from Drumboylan Church. He had 3 sons and 3 daughters. Another brother came with him. They brought their craft and their style with them. Here comes the most interesting animal I've encountered in a long time. Last seen by me in the workshop of Joe McLaughlin, the last craftsman cooper in Omagh town. It's the cooper's grey mare. Known by that name, John Surles says, and in several languages, of course, all over Europe. That vice is as old as the Middle Ages. In comfort and control, the craftsman sits and plies his spokeshave. My father married, John says, when he was 20 and eventually came to live at Fallings, not far from Ballahadreen. When he was 14, John took the place of his elder brother Bill, who had gone to the United States of America and went, you might say, to the woods to follow the ancestral craft. John himself had 2 sons and 3 daughters, and now has 18 grandchildren, his great pride, for he delights to be among children. His own family, as he puts it, spread out to make a living. He himself was 8 years in the States, from 1925 to 33, managed a store for a Clareman who was in a big way of business in chain stores, a fleet of trucks, a racetrack at Tarrytown on the Hudson, and more besides, but who went bust. The years are significant. The Depression was there. The log is expertly split with the beetle and cleaver to break out the legs for the stool. That is why John likes ash, for it splits cleanly and evenly. John came home from the States and built a house and shop and went back to the woods. But the chief reason for his coming home, and he tells it with laughter in his voice, was because of a lady who was a school teacher in the famous school at Tony Brack. The school that Mr. James Dillon described, and he wasn't slighting it, as the Bog College. To Tony Brack, scholars came from far and near and stayed in the houses with the local people. It was as famous as the schools of Munster in the days of William Carleton's poor scholar. John Surlis married that lady teacher from Tony Brack, Bridget Mann. The legs are finished with a draw knife. The tools are few and simple: saw, chisel, auger, hatchet, spokeshave. He still has a set of cooper's tools in use, and the draw knife is one of them. The diameter is checked with a wooden gauge, but he says easily that his work in wood is now for him more of a hobby than anything else. Green timber is easier to work and is handy for pig troughs, harrows and handles, but the superior work is done from well-seasoned timber, and proper seasoning is a lengthy and all-important work. The legs are fitted in and hammered home. Deal seasons itself, and you can work ash with only a third of the sap out. Some woods can do with 3 or 4 years seasoning. The planks, the way you stack them, separated for air. The waste ends are sawn off. The legs steadied with wedges of their own substance. Not a nail anywhere to be seen. And there's the finished article, as steady on its feet as a strong farmer. Vincent Cochrane, the postman, stops for a chat.
Morning, Mrs. Solis. Oh, I'm not bad. Oh, it's a lovely day, thank God.
Bag for me today?
Oh, well, I got a letter for you. It might be a cheque.
It doesn't look like one, I think.
It doesn't look like one from the girls. You're getting tired.
It's young Declan's job to feed the chickens.
Pick them all now.
John Surlis is still a very active man. When he was younger, he helped to fell many's the tree with a crosscut, a 2-man saw. If the tree was a big one, a rope was attached to each handle, and with 2 men aside, it took only 25 to 30 minutes to fell the largest tree.
We'll soon have all the big ones too. You can leave them on
The miniature chairs are replicas of full-sized chairs that John makes. His fingers are never idle, as handy with the penknife as the spokeshave. Ursula likes nothing better than to put the chairs on the shelves in the shop. Little chairs for leprechauns. Baskets and straddles for their donkeys. Even hurley sticks. And Terry Madden drops in.
Fine.
That's a nice evening.
It was wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful day.
It was a good day.
Fine. You got all your here today?
Finished.
Yeah.
Got finished, and I got the turf done as well.
Very good.
So I'm flying now.
Yeah.
No problem.
You can sit down now
I
for the
can
way
sit down for the winter, is right. But I'm going to do a little bit of mowing, so
Oh,
I
yes.
want to buy a grass board off you anyway.
Yeah, very good.
A good one now, that'll last.
That's the best one. Good we did it.
And I want to pick one of those as well.
Yeah.
Try
Yeah,
them, right?
go ahead.
You pick one for me because
When you trust me.
might as well trust you. I trust you up to now, so.
Well, that's the best one now. And when you're picking a rod again, always pick the heavy one. And you're getting the first lint of what they call the butt of the tree.
Fine, that's grand.
And no matter what handle you buy, always get weight in it.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
That won't break anyway.
No.
That looks a perfect.
That's not a branch.
That's not a branch. It's a good one, that is.
Yeah.
That's grand. And I'll have some sugar as well, off if you please.
Very good. You have a sweet tooth.
I have a sweet tooth. It's not great for the weight, but however, I'm still going to have it anyway. And you could give me 20 major as well, please.
Very good. To soothe the nerve.
That's good for the nerve. You can charge those up to me.
Very good.
That's fine.
Yeah.
When my grandfather came from Leitrim, John Searles will tell you, the chair got its name. He brought a traditional local style with him from one county to another, at a time when every townland had its own fashion, away before standardization and mass production. He's talking of the Leitrim chair, the product of his craft that has brought him international fame and brought specimens of his work to the National Museum. He shapes the seat with the hand axe. Marks the holes for the back rungs of the chair, drills with the auger, and he marks out the back rest. With this chair, John Searles captured in Canada a most prestigious international award, the World's Craft Council Award, at an exhibition held in Toronto in 1974, among 500 exhibits and exhibitors from 57 countries. Dr. Muriel Gann of the Craft Council of Ireland was responsible for encouraging him to enter the competition. According to John, anything that had been done for craft, it was Miss Gann did it, and she did everything she could. and quietly proud of his own achievement and of the tradition behind it, he'll say, like a true artist, anything I'd make would be better the next time. And I suppose that's how I got the prize.
Now, turn it this way. Rub it light now.
He works with his grandson Kieran, who possesses a little Cooper's grey mare, all on his own. Kieran, he feels, may follow him in the craft. Like green fingers, these skills and interests can, people say, jump a generation.
Are you going to the bog again today?
I don't think so.
You're not going? You must work too hard yesterday. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was the bank high?
This.
And is the bog dry now? But I think you'd rather help them than help us. Would you?
When he learned the craft, the firkins were still being made for the transport and export of butter. Fine oak firkins hooped with wood of a lesser breed, £56 to the firkin, and the dealer used to test the butter with an instrument that went right to the bottom. A firkin, when you can find one, is now an antique. American oak came in baulks, 5 feet long, easy to split, a straight grain using mallet and cleaver, simpler than a saw. Hoop iron came from Belgium to make hoops for the churns, but hoops could also be made from sally rods. Good oak gave no tack, no unwanted flavour to the butter. He made horse and donkey harrows, 5 baulks and 5 holes in each baulk, 25 iron pins and all the drilling that required, and the bar and swingle. His father and himself could make 3 or 4 in a day. They made their last one about 1940. Outside the shop, the craft work is on display. Ladders and hay ropes, loy shafts and pig troughs. Barrels whose bands are carefully tested. The almost forgotten craft of the cooper.
That's all right. It's okay, that'll pass.
A donkey straddle. A donkey now is almost as rare as the craft of the cooper, but straddles of this sort made the labour of the little animal so much easier. And here's a fine family rocking chair. A genuine dog cart, if ever there was such a thing. Outside the shop and around the house, the children play. By the shore of one of the 3 beautiful lakes of Boyle, the heart and head and hands of a dedicated craftsman have created a miniature wonderland for the children. Such were the joys when we all, girls and boys, in the springtime were seen on the echoing green.